Crusaders are in the building. So, where the Crusaders are, Charles Worley is not far behind.
Yay!
So he's here today, and he's currently ministering out at Audubon Baptist Church in Garland. And they do events in the spring and Christmas and Easter. And if you're interested in ever singing with him, he's always taking PCD people to help flesh out their choirs. But he hadn't lost a beat. You'll see him today. He hadn't lost a beat. And so we've had a great time of fellowship and fun and rehearsal this weekend.
How is the health of the worship minister, Stephen? Is he okay?
He's home. Yeah,
Still.
Stephen's
Did he get to
home.
go to Colorado?
Not yet.
He had a little relapse.
He had a relapse.
Because he was trying to do too much, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
So he was actually supposed to be here today in the service, but he's not. So, but they're still determined to go to Colorado, so I hope he's staying quiet.
Well, he's home is the good news. And so if he will commit himself to some rest, then he'll be back. Yeah, but he's sick. He's sick. But he'll be back. We'll bring him. Pardon?
Is that in the contract? Did we do put a physical? Jerry Jones.
And let's see. Oh, we had a great Monday. For years, we've had folks, decades, we've had folks who come to the church and drop their kids off. You can see them in the porch day, or they're making their turn, they drop their kids off, and especially during Vacation Bible School, and they're completely unchurched, but they bring their kids. And so we thought, well, we can either talk about it, or we can go visit them. And so we targeted all those homes, all those families, and about 40 of us met up here Monday night and just split it up and canvassed the city from Rockwall to Walnut Hills, and met with these families, and we have a bunch that are going to be here today. They've just never been invited. They've just never been invited. They will come. They will come if you invite them, and we're able to witness to a lot of folks, pray for them, praying for the sick, all these needs. And so it was great, and that's just the old-fashioned way, and that's how Jesus changes lives. It's heart to heart, hand to hand. We say we want to be a New Testament church. Well, I want to be a New Testament church. Well, which one? There were some good New Testament churches and some not so good New Testament churches, but the ones that we're driving, we're doing door-to-door meeting in homes where the people are, where the people live, and that's still how it's done today. So we'll be doing that in the future, and so I'll make sure to post that. Anybody who would like to be a part of that, it's very addicting. It's extremely addicting. And once you start into that ministry, it's something that you won't let go. It becomes part of you. Okay. Well, we're in Jeremiah. We're in Jeremiah still, and what we're going to do, we'll look at. First, let's look at the handout. This is prepared by Rabbi Mordecai, and the 9th of Av is the day that the temples were destroyed. Nebuchadnezzar, when he destroyed the temple, it's also the same day that the temple was destroyed by Titus in 70 AD, but you can kind of see the calendar year and the Hebrew year, and that's why whenever we're working these calendars and looking at these dates, we're always converting, because all of our prophecies and all of our prophets, every single one of them, they were Jews, and they used the Hebrew calendar. And that's why, in order to coordinate with the Gregorian calendar, we have to do those calculations. But you can see the 9th day of Av, which was celebrated last week. And typically, after the 9th of Av is when you have a lot of Jewish weddings, just in celebration. And what the Jewish wedding means, if you've seen Fiddler on the Roof, that's not too far from what the spiritual truths are. And August is a big wedding month, because in the Mishnah teaches that if there are weddings that take place after the 9th of Av, that family will incur a blessing, because it's God saying, yes, I want this nation and I want these people to continue. So you hear in the secular world a lot of June brides. In the Jewish world, you have a lot of August brides, because it's commanded. It's not commanded in the Mishnah, but the Mishnah is their commentary, and they rely so heavy on it. And it's one of the feasts that is not mentioned in the Bible, but it's a feast that just wrapped up last week called the Wedding Feast. And in the Jewish community, it's their Sadie Hawkins Day, too. It's where the women in the fields, what they would do, they would either wear a white dress or they would borrow a white dress. And typically, all the girls borrowed a white dress to go out into the fields. And so they would show their charm and talk about their, the skill set that they would bring to the home. And it was appropriate after the 9th of Av for the Jewish women to court the men. And so that just finished up. We'll take a look at it this week, but this is part of what came out of exactly where we're studying here in Jeremiah, the loss of Solomon's temple to the Babylonians. Today's lesson, it's hard, but it's fun. Chapter 30. Chapter 30 and 31, they go together. They're long chapters, and so we won't finish today. But there's some great truth. There's some great truth here. And this has sustained me. This chapter sustained me a great deal in my youth. And it still sustains me today. And I'll be sharing some personal stories with you about what the verse has meant to me and how it's helped me through some really difficult times and helped all of us. And that's why it's here. These teachings are here because the heart of man does not change. We're in the same situation in our country as Jeremiah was seeing in Judah in his day. Nothing changes. The heart of man can still be extremely wicked. But the Lord has given us these parameters to operate in and also given us the grace and the strength to walk through those. So, we left off last week, I think, in 30:17. And we're going to look at a couple of things. When we saw the return of the Messiah, one of the most quoted scriptures, and we'll look at Jeremiah 39. We skipped over it last week. Oh, we didn't skip over it, but we didn't go into detail because of time. But let's just look at Jeremiah 39. We're going to flesh that out and then we'll continue. But they shall serve the Lord, their God, and David, their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Now, Lord in Jeremiah 39, you should have it in all capital letters. It should be in all capital letters in the Bible. And what that was meaning, and Jesus addressed this, and we're going to go to some verses that actually prophesied this, because our next two chapters, they're speaking about the immediate deliverance of Judah within the 70-year time frame that Jeremiah sets out. But we're also looking to the millennial kingdom. There's some amazing promises that are made to all of us, because it's not just those who are circumcised of the flesh, it's those who are circumcised of the heart. Okay? And we're a part of those that are circumcised by the heart. Let's go
Tell
to...
me where we are again.
Okay. Well, Jeremiah 3:9.
Okay.
Jeremiah 3, I'm 30, I'm sorry. Did I say 30?
39.
It's in 39.
Oh, that's a big difference, I'm sorry. Jeremiah 30, verse 9. And in Jeremiah 30, verse 9, you should have Lord in capital letters. If you have Lord in capital letters in Jeremiah 39, that's a typo. Okay, let's look at Zechariah's prophecy. Okay, let's go over to the New Testament. Let's flesh this out a little bit, because remember, we had 400 years. From the close of Malachi until the opening in Matthew, when there were shepherds dividing the field, there were 400 years of silence. There was no prophet in Israel, no prophet. And the canons that we have, they're not included in our Bible, because quite frankly, the canons themselves say that they're historical. There was no prophet in Israel. God was not speaking. So we're picking up with Zechariah. Zechariah didn't have anything else to rely on but these prophecies. So Zechariah is reading these prophecies. He's reading the major prophets. He's reading the minor prophets. And then 400 years later, this is what he's coming up with. Let's go to Luke 167. Luke 167. And this is Zechariah's prophecy. Remember, Zechariah, he had that little issue in the temple. And he's we're in the birth of John the Baptist. So let's look at Zechariah 167. And his father, Zechariah, was filled with the Holy Ghost and prophesied, saying, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. Now we've looked at early prophecies, and we know that the Messiah is going to come out, what, the root of Jesse. And Jesse was who? Jesse was the father of David. Okay, David. And then we've looked at the lineages through Solomon and through Nathan that then go down to Jesus. And so Zechariah is saying, look, he's going to raise up this horn of salvation. It's going to be out of the house of David. The Messiah is going to be a Davidic Messiah. And we just saw that in Jeremiah. He's saying the very same thing. As he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, exactly, which have been since the world began. So he's making this prophecy based on the work of the other prophets, 71, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he swore to our father Abraham. Okay, which is what? Which is what? I will redeem you. I will give you the land. Through you all the nations will be blessed, and I'll give you the Messiah. Okay, same promise. Are we the children of Abraham too? Oh, of course we are. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we sing that song? Father Abraham. Father Abraham. So let's okay, all right. That's why we're singing it. Because we're doing, what are we doing in that song? We are teaching our children that their father is Abraham, and that these promises that are set up are there, so that in their heart, when they're in the wee teens, or whatever we call them, weebelows, or what do we call them now? Sunbeams.
GA's all right. GA's all right?
Mission
Friends.
friends.
So that we're in mission friends, that seed is planted in their heart. This promise is for you. This lineage is for you. It's to bless the nations of the world, sure. But you're going to be blessed by this too. All right, same thing. 74. That he would grant unto us that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. Starting when? When we were a child. 76. And thou, child, shalt be called the prophet of the highest, for thou shalt go before the face of the Lord to prepare his ways. All right. Now, 76. Who are we talking about? We're talking about John the Baptist, right? He's going to prepare the way. Do you see Lord in verse 76? Okay. Is it all capital letters or just capital L? Capital L. Right. Okay. To give knowledge of salvation unto his people by the remission of their sins, tender mercy of our God, whereby the day spring from on high has visited us, to give light to them that sit in darkness and shadow to death, and guide our feet into the way of peace. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, and was in the deserts till the day of his showing in Israel. So it's talking about John the Baptist, and he's preparing the way for the Lord. For the Lord. And when he meets Jesus, of course, he baptizes Jesus, and we know how that fleshes out. But what we're looking at the Messiah. It's the Messiah that Jeremiah is talking about. It's the Messiah that Zacharias is talking about. It's the Messiah that John the Baptist is preparing the way for. The Pharisees couldn't get this one. They just couldn't get it. So let's go to Matthew 22:41. We're going to hear from Jesus on this issue, and we'll get it all straight. We'll get it all straight. We'll go to the source. Matthew 22:41. So the Pharisees were questioning Jesus, and you just stumped them on the Great Commandment issue. And so now, in typical Jewish form, Jesus is asking the question. And that's so Jewish. That is so Jewish. When the Lord exposes sin, doesn't he do it in question? Really? In question. Well, why? How about day one, when we're in the garden, and Adam has fallen? What does he say? Adam, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. I was like, what did he say? Adam, where are you? You tell me what you've done. What did Adam do? I'm out of here. That's because he's so merciful. 41. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, okay, I want to ask you some questions, saying, what think ye of Christ? whose son is he? Now he's asking the Pharisee this. Why? Because they've got it all wrong, and that is the ultimate issue, the ultimate question that every person who's ever lived is going to have to ultimately answer. Who is the Christ? And you remember Jesus says the same thing with Peter. Who do people say I am? Some say you're Jeremiah. Some say you're John the Baptist resurrected from the dead. Some say, well, who do you say I am? You're Christ the Messiah. Well done, Peter. Flesh and blood will not reveal that to you, but the Spirit. So he's asking the Pharisee, what do you think of Christ? Whose son is he? And they said unto him, well, he's the son of David. Right. Why? Because he's in the Davidic line. He's going to be the son of David. That's who the Christ is. And here's what Jesus asked them. This is brilliant. And he said unto them, how then doth David in spirit call him Lord, saying, 44, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. If David then call him Lord, how is he his son? He's asking the question. You're telling me that the Messiah is the son of David. Well, if that's true, if he is the son of David, then how come David is calling him Lord? And what did they say? We'll get back to you. Right? No man was able to answer him a word. Neither durst any man from that day forth ask him any more questions. All right. This is interesting. It's like being on Jeopardy, the buzzers are silent. The answer is, this is so important, and this is so key to understanding the prophecies and understanding our relationship to Christ. Anytime you see something repeated in Hebrew, repeated 3 times, it's the highest form of expression possible. That's why we have holy, holy, holy. This verse here, this verse in Psalm, which is Psalm 110:1, it's the most quoted psalm in the New Testament. 9 times. Okay, so it's not just 3. It's 3 times 3. All right. If you see something, and you see all these men of God quoting Psalm 110, it's important. Let's go figure it out. Let's go to Psalm 110. We don't want to be like the Pharisees. We don't want to be the Pharisees. We want to be on Jeopardy. And this is the final Jeopardy. This is the final Jeopardy question. Okay. If David called him son, how come he's also calling him Lord? The answer is, let's go Psalm 110:1. Lord. All right, look at Lord. Is it capital?
Yes.
All letters?
Yes.
All right. Said unto my Lord. Look at Lord. Is it different? Yeah. No. My Lord, Lord. The first time it's all capital. My Lord said unto my Lord. The second is small because it is Adonai. This is Yahweh. Yahweh. Adonai. He said what? Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. Who's sitting at the right hand of the Father? Jesus. The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power. In the beauty of holiness from the womb in the morning thou hast dew of the youth. So we see here that he's the priest, royal priesthood. And the Lord has sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever out of the order of Melchizedek. Now we had the Aaronic priesthood. But what was different about Melchizedek? What was the distinguishing factor about Melchizedek? Remember when he was chosen by God? And it was in perpetuity. It was perpetual. It had no end to it. Chosen by God, no end. Jesus, chosen by God, no end to the priesthood. That makes it different from the Aaronic priesthood, right? Because the Aaronic priesthood is limited to the lifespan of the priest at this point in time. That's why we have so many of them. A priest out of the order of Melchizedek. To do what? To rule at the right hand, to strike the kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the heathen. fill the places with dead bodies, wait before the judgment. He shall wound the heads over many countries. They shall drink the brook in the way, therefore shall he lift up the head. He's going to rise against all these kings we see in Revelation. When he comes riding on that horse to the Mount of Olives and stops the battle of Armageddon, what's on his head? Many crowns. King of many crowns. He came with many crowns. So the answer is this. He is the son of David because he is in the lineage. That's part of the prophecy. But David was also able to call him Messiah. Why? Because the Lord, Yahweh, had decreed that he would sit at the right hand and he would be our Redeemer. Okay, all right. God is not a respecter of persons. What is our relationship? Huh? We are also sons of God, but yet we have our Lord, our Messiah too. So the answer is, yeah, he's the Son of God, but he's also the Messiah. And he's also the Messiah. And that's what Jeremiah is trying to get across to them right now. There's going to be a day when this Messiah will rule and reign. And that day is coming. And when that happens, all of these prophecies will come into final completion. Final completion. All right. So we've solved that. Let's go back now to Jeremiah 30, and let's work through this. And this is a wonderful promise. I will stand on this many times, as have many of you, and as we will in the future. As long as we live on this planet, this is going to be an issue. So let's pick it up where we left off last week, Jeremiah 30, verse 17. And this is the promise of restoration. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord, because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. And Zion is what? It's the city of David, right? Let's answer that question. That was a question someone asked a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Let's go to 2 Samuel 5:6. 2 Samuel 5:6. It's very clear here. This is right after David is made king over Israel. In 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 6, he takes Zion. He attacks Zion. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem, and to the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, which spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind of the land, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking David cannot come hither. Because of the rock that is Mount Moriah, and the height and the wall that the Jebusites had built up, they were saying, hey, you couldn't take this wall. If we were all blind and lame, you still can't come in. You can't take our city. So what did David do? Well, he went through the valley of Gihon, and went to an underwater spring, and actually went underneath the wall. Verse 7, nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. The same is the city of David. So when we're singing our song, we're marching to Zion, the city of God. It's the city of David. And in particular, we're looking towards the Temple Mount, okay, which is where God chose that place to meet man, to speak to men. Okay? All right, so there's going to be this restoration of Zion. So back to Jeremiah 30, verse 18. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places, and the city shall be builded upon her own heap. Okay? And the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. Looking toward the future. This city is going to be rebuilt on the heap. So Jeremiah is saying two things here. All right, you've been warned enough. Nebuchadnezzar's going to sack this place, and it's going to be ruined, and it's going to be that heap. And what's fascinating is that after the Second Temple period, when Titus sacked Jerusalem, and what he did, he plowed it through. He plowed it under, just like Jeremiah had stated, because he didn't want the walls rebuilt on the same line. And as you go up to the eastern gate today, there's stairs that lead up to the eastern gate. In the time of Jesus, there were no stairs there. But literally, this city of Zion, as we know it today, was built upon the rubble that the Romans left. And that's why there's stairs going up to it. Right? And what do we see here? That temple is coming. In what manner? As the manner thereof. And that's why in Ezekiel, he's got the layout, he's got the details. When you build that third temple, this is what it's going to look like. And that was tremendously helpful. Remember, during this time period, where's Ezekiel right now? What's he doing? He's been hauled off to Babylon. And he's writing his prophecies. He's in Babylon about 5 years and he starts his ministry. And the Lord gives to him the dimensions and the instructions on how to rebuild the third temple. Okay? Well, if you're captive in Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar has just knocked your place down, you're thinking, okay, all right, it will be rebuilt one day. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's going to be rebuilt. So there's this hope towards the future. And so in the millennial, you say, well, the temple's not there today. Yeah, but it will be. Yes, it will be. 19. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that make merry. And I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will also glorify them, and they shall not be small. All right, now look at this promise, verse 20. Their children shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all them that oppress them. Okay. Their children will be as before. We're just going to put a little mark there, and we'll come back to that because it's going to give us some more details. 21. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them, and I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith the Lord? Ye shall be my people. I will be your God. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind, it shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of the Lord shall not return until he have done it, and until he have performed the intents of the heart. In the latter days shall consider it. All right, there'll be the separation. He's going to bring healing and rest and restoration. Bad guys will be dealt with. And let's go into 31 because they're connected, and let's look at this promise a little bit more. Chapter 31, the restoration of Israel. At the same time, saith the Lord, will I be the God of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. Thus saith the Lord, the people which were left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I went to cause them to rest. The Lord hath appeared unto me, saying, Hey, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. And again, I will build thee, and thou shalt be built. And this is so sweet. This is so sweet. During that reign, what does he call Israel? O virgin of Israel. You're a virgin. You're a virgin to me. That is the total act of redemption and grace. And what had Isaiah called the Israelites and those living in Judah? Harlots. You're a bunch of harlots. What does the Messiah calls them? Virgins. Total, complete redemption. And the Virgin of Israel shall be adored again with the tambourines, and they shall go forth in dances of them that make merry. They shall plant vines on the mountains of Samaria. The planters shall plant, and they shall eat them as common things. For there shall be a day that the watchmen upon the mount of Ephraim shall cry, Arise, and let us go to Zion, and to the house of the Lord. For thus saith the Lord, Sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Lord, save thy people in the remnant of Israel. A time of great joy when we see these promises being fulfilled. Now, we see the blind and lame again here, don't we? In a different context. Verse 8. Behold, I will bring them from the north country. He's already done that from Russia. And gather them from the coasts of the earth, from the east and west. That's already happened. And with them the blind, the lame, the woman with child, her that travaileth with child together, a great company shall return thither. We've seen that happen in our lifetime. And they shall come with weeping, and with supplications will I lead them, and I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble, for I am the father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Okay, largest tribe. Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations. Now he's speaking to the nations. And declare it in the isles far off, and say, He that scattereth Israel will gather them and keep them as a shepherd doth his flock. Okay, so he's telling the nations, I am bringing them back to the land. What does that mean? Nobody's going to be able to stop it. What's going to happen? Well, it is happening. redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of the Lord for wheat, for wine, for oil, and for the young of the flock and the herd. And their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more than water. It's always nice to have a watered garden. If your garden is unwatered, it's not fruitful, it's not productive, and everything's wiry and no good. It's going to be like, look at the images, total complete restoration. What a merciful God we are. All right. Then shall the who? The virgin rejoice in the dance, both young men and old together, for I will turn their mourning into joy, and I will comfort them and make them rejoice from their sorrow. And I will satiate the soul with the priest with abundance, and my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, saith the Lord. Why wouldn't we be ever just satisfied with the goodness of God? Satisfied with the goodness of the Lord. We all have so much to be thankful for. Verse 15. Thus saith the Lord. All right. A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter, weeping. Rachel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. Okay, let's go to Matthew 2:17 and let's see this prophecy fulfilled. Matthew 2:17. We had Rachel weeping over her children. And there's going to be a time when Rachel weeps over her children. That prophecy was fulfilled in the first century. It's Matthew 2:17. Let's start in 16. This is when Herod had ordered all the children killed. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. You know, you have to look to this time frame. You have Herod, who is ruling over Jerusalem and all of Galilee at the time, and has all the children killed. And it's a great time of promise. It's the same promise as Zechariah was looking for. And the Messiah comes, and right at the onset of the Messiah coming, when you have all this redemption and all these promises that are about to be fulfilled, you have the slaughter of all these children. The slaughter of all these children. Now, how can that be good? Now, if you were a Jew, would you be thinking, you know what, might not it have been better if there had not been a Messiah at all? I lost my kids because of this. And so there's this prophecy of Jeremiah saying, now there's going to be a time where you're going to be weeping over the loss of all your children. And if anybody has ever lost a child, we know somebody that has lost a child, what greater lamentation can there be, really? That we're not supposed to bury our children. They're supposed to bury us. This prophecy gets fulfilled. Well, how do we do with that? Okay, well, let's see what Jeremiah does. 16. Thus saith the Lord. This is hard. Here it is. It's just the truth. Thus saith the Lord. Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears. For thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. And they, who? Children, shall come again from the land of the enemy, and there is hope in the end, saith the Lord, that thy children, your children, shall come again to their own border. What border we're talking about? We're talking about Zion. We're talking about Zion. The children were killed by the enemy. There's all this weeping, and it did happen. I mean, Herod did kill them all because he was trying to prevent the Messiah. And Jeremiah says, look, I understand the sorrow. I understand your weeping. But you can refrain from weeping because there's going to be hope. These children are coming back again to their own border. Did this happen to David? Did this happen to David? Did he lose a child? All right. Let's see what David did. 2 Samuel 12:13. 2 Samuel 12:13. And this is about David's repentance and sorrow after Bathsheba. And so David said unto Nathan, Nathan exposed him for his lie. I've sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin, and thou shalt not die. So there was mercy there, but we have a consequence. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born shall surely die. And that's true today. So David, you're in leadership, and you've committed this adultery. And you know what? We're going to put you out there. We're going to give you the Love for Bread Award for this one. And it's going to cause shame. And everybody's going to look at you and say, shame! How could you do that and discredit the Lord? Same thing happens to that. But the child's going to be the consequence of that. And Nathan departed into the house, and the Lord struck the child, that Uriah's wife. Notice he puts Uriah's wife. Put that pinpoint on it. This was Uriah's wife. Bare unto David, and it was very sad. David therefore besought God for the child. David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of the house arose and went to him to raise him up from the earth. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the seventh day that the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. But they said, behold, when the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken to our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child's dead? So his servants are scared. Look at the condition he's in. Look at this level of mourning. And there's still hope in the child's life. Now the child's dead. We better not tell him. 19. But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, is the child dead? They said, he's dead. And David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came to the house of the Lord. So what did David do? Number one, stopped the mourning. Number two, he worshipped. And then he came to his own house, and he required that they set bread before him, and he did eat. And his servants asked him, they said unto him, what thing is it that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive, but when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. And he said, while the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me that the child may live? But now he's dead. Wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? He's asking a question. Can I bring him back? No. What? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. He understood that. He understood that promise. He understood. Now, he was taking it on credit because the Messiah had not come yet. But there was an understanding. I am going to be with my son here. I'm going to be with this child here. He can't come to me, but I will go to him. An understanding of these verses, understanding of these promises, of these truths. And we've done a study on children. We know that they get a special exemption. Yeah, they do. We will be able to meet the son of Uriah's wife in one point. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And what's fascinating is that Isaiah says the same thing. Now, Isaiah's already through. He's already through with his ministry. And he ministered the best he could to the Israelis in the north, and they would not listen, and so his ministry's through, and so after that they were pretty hacked at him, so they sawed him in two. A pretty ugly way to saw him in two. They hung Isaiah upside down, and they sawed him lengthwise. It was pretty ugly. But he's saying the same thing. Isaiah 11:7. Let's go, that'll be our last verse today. Isaiah 11:7. I'll start at 6. Talking about this millennial reign. Look at this. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together. And a little child shall lead them. Oh, yeah. Where did that little child come from? Where does he come from? And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the sucking child, the nursing child, shall play in the hole of an asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the copper stone, and they shall not hurt nor destroy. Where? In all my holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Oh, okay, well, it's pretty definitive. Do the waters cover the sea? No? Okay. The earth will be filled with that knowledge. And so even Isaiah is looking at the rule at the time when the branch of Jesse comes. And you've got all these kids. Where do they come from? Well, Jeremiah says you get your kids back. And I really believe, I really do. I really believe that all those who've lost their children, your children get another chance to be children. And they get to go through those phases, and they get all those experiences, and they get to have that life. Because it's not done. You know, it's not done. And this was real hard for me when I was in, and all of us, when I was in high school. It was the first week of high school. Didn't we know the Hammett family who grew up here in the church? The Hammets. And Mark went to Walnut Hill, and I went to Foster, but they both fed into Cary Junior High and then to Thomas Jefferson. And it was our first week, it was just our first week of school. We had all these plans. We grew up in the church together, and we played basketball, and we hung out at the gym. We had all these plans. We're in high school now. You know, we're pretty soon we'll be driving. You know, we have double dates, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And then we were in biology class, first week of school, Miss Henry's biology class, and Jay Kirkpatrick had just gotten a motorcycle. And Mark had borrowed a helmet. He didn't have a helmet. He borrowed a helmet. He was putting it on, and he was spinning it on his head. You know, we're kids. We don't know any better. That's pretty funny. You're going to ride a spinning helmet. Great. And so they're going on the way home, and they're going on Park Lane. And Park Lane, right before it comes to Inwood, there's a blind turn. There's a blind turn. And Jay was kind of in the middle of the road, and then the lady was coming in the station wagon, and she was kind of in the middle of the road, and they connected, and that was it. Mark was killed. He died on the spot. If you go there today there's a stop sign there. That's because Mark Hammett died there. After that, they put a stop sign. Okay. And at his funeral, there was just so much sorrow. And Pastor Howard talked to Jeremiah, preached to Jeremiah. So, you know, this isn't the end. It is not over. We think it's over. It is not over. And so I thought, oh yeah, it's not over. Oh, we'll see, Mark. We will be doing those things. We will be doing these things. Again, the same thing when Johnny Fuller lost his little daughter. You know, we see every single Sunday bouncing around the music studio between the time we finish here and the time we have our rehearsals on Sunday afternoons. She's just bouncing all around. And then the next Sunday she wasn't there. Okay, well, it's not over. It's not done. Every single one of these prophecies has come true. Every single one of them. And those that haven't, we're seeing their pre-fulfillment in our day. There's no reason to expect that this promise is a lesser promise than any of the others. The Lord knows what children mean to us. He really, really does. And He knows what they mean to Rachel and her kids. And the promise was very clear. Rachel, there'll be a time, those kids come back to where to Zion. Those kids are coming back, and they're going to get to play and do whatever else kids do. They're going to get to do that. But it's going to be in a world without sin, where righteousness reigns, where the knowledge of God covers the face of the earth, just like the waters cover the sea. And you know what? In a way, they're getting a better deal. They're getting a better deal. Okay, would you like to play in a world where you don't get chicken pox? Measles? Polio? I would. Okay. So, stand firm in the promises of God, because they're true.